Good morning, everybody. My name is Barry Kemp. I'm the head of infrastructure as a service at Vox. I've been in the IT industry for the past 20 years. I've been at Vox for the last 6 in the managed services and then the cloud computing space. Today's webinar is part of the Vox webinar series, and we'll be discussing the cloud, key cloud trends, where the cloud's moving to, and how you can use cloud to enhance your business. The webinar is brought to you by Vox in partnership with VMware. And joining me today, we have Dave Funnell, the Chief Weather Maker at VMware.
So thank you there, Barry. I've been introduced as many things, never the chief weather maker, maybe the chief bottle washer. My role is as cloud provider partner for Sub-Saharan Africa for VMware. Now, what does that mean? That means I'm working with partners such as Vox to deliver solutions to you, their clients, as you transition to this cloud operating model. So thank you very much for having me here today, Barry, and the rest of the Vox team. And thank you very much for dialing in today. As Barry says, I think we've got a lot of interesting insights. So hopefully the next 45 minutes will be worth your time. Thank you.
Thanks, Dave. Just a couple of housekeeping rules before you start. Please turn your cell phone off. Sorry, guys, no, it's a webinar. You don't have to do that. A couple of things. We'll be running a few polls during the course of the webinar. The first one will be coming up now. Have you moved to the cloud yet? That's quite relevant to the discussion, and it'll be interesting to see the insights from you guys. There'll also be a Q&A section at the end. So if you've got any questions, feel free to put them into the Q&A section, and we'll address them at the end of the webinar. So Dave, I think let's start with a topic that we both sort of hate the term, digital transformation, but it's particularly relevant in the market. Where are you seeing the cloud being used in digital transformation?
Yeah, and I do. I think it's a real cliche, but what do we really mean by digital transformation? I think if we look at every company in every industry, they are faced by the same pressures. They need to bring product to market faster. That time to market needs to be quicker. They need to be able to pivot their strategy. And obviously, we're seeing that this year more than ever. How do you cope with COVID-19 and the demands it's putting on you? So that ability to be agile is absolutely critical. And of course, underpinning both of those is how do you do this cost effectively? How do you manage those costs, both for delivering the traditional IT resources today and then as you take on cloud? So every initiative that we see is probably under one of those three pillars. And what is product today? Well, product is applications. That's what we're building on as we move from these traditional systems of record to these systems of engagement and then autonomy and intelligence after that. And as VMware, we're seeing a huge growth, exponential growth in the number of new applications being developed. Something like another 400 million applications over the next 5 years. Now that is as many applications as have been developed over the previous 40 years. And we have roughly 300 and something applications in production today. So how is business going to deliver these applications? Well, how is IT going to support business in delivering these applications? And that's really what I think digital transformation is. And it's the problem statement for IT. How can you support business with those existing traditional applications while developing and delivering all these new applications that you're going to have to do over the next 5 years?
So then there's probably quite a move to a hybrid environment where you have some applications that are your legacy applications that you're going to keep in the cloud, and then you've got the new breed of applications, the container applications and those microservices. That seems to be the new trend coming along.
Yeah, very much so. And I think what we've seen up till now is two types of organizations. It's those that sort of have said they want to jump all in with cloud. You know, we've got a strategy here. We're moving everything to the cloud within the next couple of years. And you've got those organizations that are maybe procrastinating on where do they move. And I think part of that is people see cloud as a destination, and it's an operating model. It is just a model for the consumption of resources to deliver to the applications that you have. And our belief is, and what we're seeing now with the analysts, is you need a different strategy and maybe a different platform around the traditional applications that you're running today, those three-tier applications, you know, a web front end, an application middleware layer, and a database on the back end. You know, traditionally they sat on VMs, right? What do you want there? Well, you're probably not going to be building your apps of the future in that way. In fact, 95% of applications are going to be built on microservices, containerized. But those traditional applications are not going away. Gartner released some research earlier this year where 90% of those applications will still be in production as they are in 3 years' time, you know, not refactored for positive business benefit. So what we're seeing, that's where we see hybrid cloud coming into play. You want to exit your data center, but you've got these traditional applications. How do you exit quickly and successfully with predictable results? And that's obviously just by rehosting onto a very similar platform where you can migrate seamlessly. And that's where we see private cloud coming to play, the sort of virtual data center solutions that you as Vox are delivering, with your cloud platform to a VMware certified reference design. And then if someone else is looking after those traditional applications, so they're running securely with performance, predictable cost, then as an IT organization, you can focus on those cloud native apps. How do I consume those, all those new apps for the future? Put your resources there. What we do see happening, unfortunately, is a lot of people making the mistake that they think they'll take those traditional applications onto a native cloud platform. And that migration can be very time consuming, be a lot of resources involved, and very unpredictable results when you get there. And that can be unpredictable results around security, performance, and particularly cost. And the analysts 451 released some research just about 2 years ago, where 35% of those applications get repatriated into a private cloud. So you can imagine you spent all that time migrating to the cloud, and now you repatriate those applications. That's not a successful project. Now you think organizations would be learning, but actually IDC released last year that 85% of organizations were repatriating workloads from the public hyperscalers back towards a private cloud or traditional model. And again, exactly the same drivers: performance, security, and cost. So we definitely see you need a different strategy or a different platform around managing the traditional applications you've built your business on that are still core to that business today, and the new cloud native apps that you're going to be building for tomorrow. Now, hybrid cloud, most people can't switch off their data center tomorrow. So you're still going to run some in your own data center, but you're going to gradually migrate them into that cloud environment. Being able to have that seamless operating model between on-prem and where you're consuming those traditional applications from makes management easier, makes the growth in the consumption of resources much easier, much more granular. And you can use the same tools. You don't need to reskill your teams to consume that platform. And I think 80% of organizations will have a hybrid operating model alongside what they're doing with the public clouds as well.
Yeah, I think I saw a article somewhere where they said the concept of hybrid cloud is actually, the name hybrid cloud is disappearing. It's just cloud. It doesn't matter. Even if it's on-prem, it's still part of your overall sort of cloud architecture.
Yeah, very much so. As VMware, we sell solutions to end user customers, and we allow them to build their private cloud on premise. And we call that vCloud Foundation, that full software-defined data center stack. We also work with all the hyperscalers around delivering private cloud. I mean, who would have thought VMware would be partnering with Azure, with GCP, with AWS, AliCloud, Oracle, IBM Public Cloud? Yeah, we're working with all of them because they realize a VMware-based private cloud is the optimal platform to run those traditional applications on. And then we're working with our cloud provider partners such as Vox, a network of 4,000 partners globally, to deliver private cloud hosted in the cloud. That's really the best of both worlds, isn't it? You get that platform to run your traditional applications, but you get it in a cloud operating model. But all of them are running that VMware Cloud Foundation, so a consistent platform, so you can use those same tools you're using on premise, but I say just consume them in a cloud operating model.
And I suppose one of the key sort of takeaways when you're trying to do any sort of cloud migration is how much it's going to cost and how you manage that cost. Have you got some insights into how that plays out?
Yes, I think two parts to this answer, Barry. The first one is what's the cost of getting from A to B, from on-prem into the cloud? Now, the cloud can very often be cheaper. I think it's a misconception that it will always be cheaper, but that cost of ownership is normally very beneficial by being in the cloud. And that's the headline number people focus on. But what they don't always see is the return on investment. Because if it is an expensive exercise, time consuming from both resources as well as costly in actually doing it to get to the cloud, these projects can often stall. And that's where refactoring applications can be problematic. Because if you're having to refactor the application, but there's no business benefit, you're not enhancing the application or the functionality with that application to the business, why would you do that? Why would you engage a company, go into a migration that's going to take months to years rather than weeks to days, sorry, days to weeks that we can do with your platform, Barry? And those projects often stall. And so the return on investment can be many years, 6, 7 years, even if the end result cost of ownership is cheaper. So being able to have a rapid, secure, successful migration of those existing traditional apps to the cloud is really key. Then the second aspect is when you're in the cloud, how do you manage that cost? And generally a VMware-based private cloud has got a nice cost structure around it. You understand what you're charging your customers. It's not too complex. They can quantify that. But in the hyperscalers, you can really get costs coming out of nowhere that people just hadn't factored in to their adoption of cloud. Now, that doesn't make the hyperscale cloud bad, right? We know they're going to grow exceptionally rapidly, and they're going to be a key part of every client's strategy as they move forward, right? But you've got to be able to manage cost. And again, we're working with you guys, obviously, as Vox, to provide those cost optimization services. So people understand where their costs are coming from the cloud, and they can make sure that what they are spending in the public cloud is being spent efficiently and optimally, so they can get maximum benefit from it.
And when a customer is, just going back to the migration topic, I suppose the planning part of that is quite a key part of the whole migration strategy. In my experience, having the correct assessment tools is probably quite key to getting that migration done before you actually start getting into the cloud.
Well, yeah, I mean, if you don't know what you're moving, can you imagine moving house? If you don't know what you've in your house and you're going to move to a secondary location, yeah, that assessment, and it's not just understanding how many workloads I've got. You've got to understand how they interact. What are the dependencies between those workloads? I mean, that is somewhere where generally that's delivered by our partners. I think as VMware, we partner very, very well. We're bringing that industry-leading software-defined data center software to market for you to deliver your cloud platform. I think you could probably say more about the assessment services as Vox that you can take to your customers.
Yeah, so we have a full assessment program. And what's quite key on our perspective as well is to understand that when you move to the cloud, you're not going to go like for like it. You're not going to take one server with that spec and put it in the cloud. That's a surefire way to spend more than you need to. You need to actually see what performance it's using. If you're only using 2% of your processor, it's pointless putting it into the cloud at 100%. If you're only using 100 gigs of a 1 terabyte hard drive, it's pointless putting the 1 terabyte worth of space in the cloud. Yeah. So that sort of insight into what you actually use is quite key to making sure your cloud migration doesn't cost you a fortune moving forward.
Yeah, and I think that is key as we see those traditional applications and the strategies a company can deploy there. The key drivers or returns or results they want to see from it are around cost, are around performance, and are about security. They're stable apps. We know how they run. Let's run them as efficiently as we can. You know, the cloud native apps, and whether they run in a private cloud because you want them run locally on a platform such as yours, or they run in the hyperscalers, that is around the innovation, the differentiation, the auto scalability and such like.
Yeah. I just want to quickly touch on cloud security, because there appears to be this conception in the market that moving to the cloud is inherently not secure. And my personal view is that the hyperscalers and people like VMware and ourselves probably have more security resources than the average sort of company would have at their sort of beck and call. What is your take on that?
Yes, I think security is always a thorny subject. I mean, we know there's more data breaches every year than there's ever been before. Organizations are struggling to keep up with their traditional security models. There are literally thousands of security vendors out there. I think trying to look at it differently, what we're doing as VMware is talking about intrinsic security, building VMware into the stack so that it's sort of almost, if you like, secure to begin with, in conjunction with those other security tools. More answering to your direct point, Barry, yeah, you guys are the experts, right? You've got the skills and the resources. You're focused, your business is running the cloud environment. Whereas for most companies, They only want the results of the infrastructure. They want the platform to deliver up their application. So I think you're in a far better position to deliver a secure platform. And you know, you've got your business reputation to keep. So you're proactive around it. I think additionally to that, yeah, we're seeing that while there's this migration to the cloud, we're already seeing the adoption of more compute happening at the edge. COVID has only accelerated that. You know, how many of your clients have mobilized all their workforce? You were telling me earlier, actually before the call, and I think it's a great example of what you've done with your call centers, right? Now you've got all these workers, and maybe we can talk a bit more to that, but distributed. You know, it is now the cloud. It's not just buttoning down a data center. It is securing all those devices wherever those devices might be. And you have experience of doing that. I mean, I don't know if you want to talk a little bit.
Yeah, so as a business, we haven't come back to the office yet, and we probably won't in the traditional sense that we have in the past. Like you mentioned earlier, our call center is working remotely completely, and that will appears to be carrying on, yeah, probably for the rest of time, so to speak.
Yeah.
And exactly like you said, we have our IT department has had to readjust the way they do things, control the edge case. Yeah, your laptop's now at home; it's not at the office anymore. But then again, yeah, we use our own cloud. We do eat our own dog food, so we were very well positioned for that because a lot of our cloud infrastructures, or a lot of our business infrastructure, is already in the cloud. So working from home there was a lot of work to get people who were on desktops back onto laptops, but most of the intrinsic systems we have are all cloud-based anyway.
Yeah.
So we could just effectively, relatively seamlessly just start working remotely. And I think it's changed a lot of mindsets for a lot of different businesses. From this, I need to be in an office to work, to it doesn't matter where I am. And we have some examples where we actually have staff that aren't in South Africa anymore, still working for us, which it just proves the sort of the cloud use case.
Yeah.
Where you don't have to be in an office anymore to be productive.
Yeah, and I think that's true. And I mean, why anyone would leave South Africa with this wonderful weather we've got today? I mean, it's glorious. I'm sure everyone wants us to wrap up so they can get out to their swimming pools or wherever they might be. But yeah, so we're seeing this, it's maybe less about cloud, but obviously this concept of, you know, secure access, secure edge, SASE. And I know we're working with you as Vox around SD-WAN as a service, endpoint management, and the delivery of security, with like the carbon black to those endpoints. So I see a continual evolution of the cloud services, encompassing more and more security as they get delivered. But again, back to your first point, I think you're in a far better position to deliver a secure environment. All organizations are consuming the cloud in many respects, whether they know it or not. I see the poll results are quite interesting. You know, we almost see an even split between those that are moving to the cloud and those that say they're not at the moment. What does the cloud mean? I would tend to think many more people are in the cloud.
Without realizing that they're in the cloud.
Yeah, they haven't maybe moved their infrastructure. They've still got their data center, their applications there, because there's almost that inertia about they don't know how to do it. They need your help with the assessments to give them a graceful strategy to get to the cloud. But they're quite possibly consuming a number of SaaS applications in the cloud, O365. So, I think it is this hybrid multi-cloud world. It isn't that one answer is right, one is wrong. People will move to the cloud, but it isn't one step. It's around developing that strategy, assessing what they have on premise to allow them to move with confidence. And I think partner with an organization that is actually eating their own dog food as well, is workers remotely, is consuming SaaS applications, is delivering applications in a cloud model.
I think probably now's the right time to talk about some of the use cases for private cloud. Where do you see companies finding private cloud most beneficial to them?
So I think the first point is that rapid migration. I mentioned earlier, we're partnering with all the hyperscalers. Why would they want to partner with us? Well, they know we can move them to the cloud much, much faster, moving from their on-premise environment into a VMware-based environment in a private cloud. You're fortunate as Vox that you can deliver that private cloud in a very flexible model for your clients, of your platform, so you can scale it easily. You can deliver it to smaller clients as well as larger clients. So I think the private cloud really comes in that first place, getting to the cloud quickly. You want to shut down your data center. I think, again, Gartner released some research 2 years ago now, but said that 80% of organizations will have closed down their data center by 2025. So if you're not thinking about doing that today, it's not something you wake up and do in 2024. You've got to be thinking about it today. But we're also cognizant you can't just switch it off. You can't go in, switch the lights off, knock the power off and say, Box, take care of everything. Well, maybe you probably could, right?
Well, now with COVID, maybe that's more of a driver than it used to be.
But they've got infrastructure investments. They've got depreciation against those assets. But with a private cloud, they can create that true hybrid operating model where they can move application workloads with real mobility from their on-prem into your cloud and back again. You know, maybe they do test and dev in the cloud. Maybe they just do DR as a service, right? Who in their right minds would pay for a secondary data center where they could just have DR into your cloud platform
and pay for what you use effectively
as they use it? You know, we see that as a huge growth area. Also a way for someone to get confidence. Oh, hang on, I can run my applications in two places. It does work. The networking does deliver. The applications perform. And we get a number of instances actually where someone DRs to the cloud and then they realize, well, hang on, this works better here. I know you guys are obviously hosted in one of the primary data center providers in South Africa. You know, you've got your direct connect, your express route there. So if organizations are going to develop modules for these applications in the public cloud, they can connect them very, very easily to the traditional application running in their virtual data center on Box's cloud offerings. So yeah, I think that same skill sets. So it's a lower cost, faster, easier migration, the ability to move in, to move out of the cloud, to do things like DR as a service into the cloud. And for those traditional apps, it's almost like a set and forget. I use the analogy sometimes, it's like a safe harbor. I truly, truly believe any organization shouldn't be focusing effort on buying servers, maintaining air conditioning, building walls.
Twiddling screwdrivers.
Yeah, to run traditional applications. Hand that over to someone else. Refocus your IT teams on the applications of the future.
The high value tasks.
Yes. How do you get that differentiation for your business? If you're spending 3 or 4 years migrating the traditional apps, you're failing. Do that very quickly to a private cloud. Now then on top of that, there are obviously governance issues, security issues. If you're in a private cloud, you are more in control of your resources and the access, I believe, into those resources. And there are a number of industries I think that's quite important for. They have the option of going onto a single tenanted private cloud or the multi-tenanted private cloud. They can have applications in both places. With the platform you have built as Vox, you know, you can provide a single portal so they can access their resources on premise, their resources in a single tenant private cloud, their resources in a multi-tenant private cloud. Just see them all in one pane of glass. So I think there are a lot of benefits to private cloud, that predictable cost as well. I could get quite boring about that, so I'll stop there.
So let's quickly, because we actually have another poll question that's relevant to that. Those of you that are in the cloud, how many of you have gone over your cloud budget? Let's just see what the audience has experienced in real life.
Yeah, this is an interesting question, I think. Yeah, I'm interested to see the result of this question.
Yeah, because I think there is some Gartner research on that as well. 80%, if I remember correctly.
I haven't seen. Yeah, you might well have done. I mean, what we do see, as I mentioned, even with traditional applications going to the cloud. And if you think traditional applications are not going to scale out of control, those traditional apps don't have auto scaling, right? They might grow. You might get month end where you need more resources, but really, you know what resources those apps use. Maybe you optimize them on the way in. And yet we see that cost as a primary driver to repatriation. So very often there, organizations think they're in the cloud, everything's going to be taken care of them. It's a silver bullet, but then they realize, oh no, I need backup. Oh, there's no DR, there's no resiliency. You know, if you're going to a cloud, an organization's still responsible for those IT processes. Now, sure, they can take that as a managed services from you. So the poll results, interesting. 66%, we don't have a budget.
I'd love to work one of those companies.
Well, does that mean they have endless budget or they've got no money? Yeah, so what the services we're looking or are delivering with you, we base on our cloud health platform, which is the leader for cost optimization in the cloud. And I've seen a couple of POCs here in South Africa where just by running cloud health on one environment in a hyperscaler, we've seen over 20% cost reclamation that could take place overnight. And then, of course, it's not a one-in-time assessment. That's an ongoing benefit. The cloud health guys, when they see that, our team in VMware, they're actually disappointed because they say, no, normally we see 25, 30% reclamation that can take place. This is workloads just on the wrong contracting. It's because, what is it? Those benefits of public cloud are the ease with which you can consume resources. One of your employees could go over, swipe a credit card, start spinning up VMs. We know how powerful the public cloud is there, but it does lead to this sprawl. It does lead to the fact that it's very difficult to understand where cost is being incurred, and finance is just having to pay the bills. What the assessment service review will bring is that consolidation of all that spend and the advice about how to adjust your contracts, how to make sure you're spending efficiently and garner that 20%.
And also, the things that are somebody's spun up a VM and hasn't decommissioned it, or hard drives that are in the cloud world space, a storage account that's just sitting there, just not doing anything, identifying those sort of wastage items, IP addresses that aren't being used, and those sort of things.
That's right. And I think then if you have a really good grasp on your public cloud spend for those applications, then you can understand, well, hang on, it's still more expensive than I was ever expecting. You know what? I just lifted and shifted this here. There was no business benefit. It was just about getting on another platform. You know what? Can I run that cheaper in a private cloud? And I mean, you were telling me earlier, I don't know if you're allowed to mention the figures, but you're seeing, that very often you provide a very competitive price point compared to running those same resources in one of the hyperscale clouds.
No, definitely. We generally are very competitive when it comes to a like for like versus any of the hyperscalers.
I think there's another.
So we also just to touch on what are you seeing as and we have touched on some of these before, but let's just quickly go through the risks and pitfalls of the cloud. Some of the others that a company might have that they'll get caught by moving to the cloud.
Yeah. So I see talking about bandwidth. Generally, a lot of cloud providers, the big hyperscalers, and I say we love them, they're all partners of ours, are very good at making it cost effective from a bandwidth ingress perspective to get your data into the cloud. Because to a degree, they know when your data's there, it's more difficult for you to look at moving somewhere else. What people don't always see is then the egress costs. And some applications, if we're looking at email archiving, the egress costs might not often appear to be massive. But if other costs are becoming prohibitive and you did want to get those workloads out, it can be a little bit of a Hotel California, where you can check out, but you never leave. So you have to be very aware of what all your cost structures might be when you move into the cloud before you make a decision. You need to understand what the life cycle is of that application, or is likely to be for application. If you do have applications that are going to have a lot of egress costs as well, you really, really want to be careful. Bandwidth costs are coming down. In fact, I think we're so much more competitive than we used to be in this country. I do think what is an advantage of your platform that you run and the migration technology we can use with you is that we can actually seed those workloads into the data center. Very often it's not the cost of the bandwidth, it's the time. If you had an email archiving application on premise and you want to move that to the cloud, that might take you many weeks to migrate that data, and you're going to have to do it outside of business hours.
We've actually had that exact use case with email migrations. Email migration services, generally there are terabytes and terabytes of data, and just trying to get like you said, the time it takes to get it from an on-prem environment into the cloud is just
So I mean, the ability, it sounds so old tech, right? I mean, you can't think we're talking about this when we go to the cloud, but to literally put it on a hard drive, put it in a van, put it onto the cloud environment, and then all you've got to do is replicate and sync the deltas. So whether it's putting the data in the cloud for the DR as a service solution, where there isn't migrating a whole application. In fact, that's a benefit of private cloud I hadn't even thought of earlier.
Okay, so I think we've gone through a lot of the talking points. Do we have any questions that we can answer?
well, hopefully we've got questions. Whether we can answer them is something else.
This is true.
I never like to say I can answer everything.
So let's see. What is the basic hardware you must have on Prem if you ultimately want to move to the cloud? APs and controllers.
Can I leave that one to you? Yeah,
sure.
thank you. You're the networking guy here.
So generally in the cloud, if you're just keeping a infrastructure on site, you would normally need, for starters, a firewall. That's probably the key component. Some switches, access points to control your staff to actually work in the office. Although, to be fair, in this day and age, with what's happening with people working from they may not be working at the office anymore. They might be working at a coffee shop or some sort of meeting place. But those are sort of the key ones. Some companies like to have domain controllers on site just to be able to control the machines. But in this new COVID world, domain controllers are becoming less and less relevant because you have the ability to manage your endpoints in the cloud using a variety of different technologies.
Yeah, I'd also add, I mean, we're seeing huge exponential growth in SD-WAN and very often delivered as a service by the service provider. Because hybrid multi-cloud world, why would you route all the traffic from the edge back through someone's data center when you can connect them directly from whatever remote site they're at to the gateways to consume O365 or SFDC, whatever SaaS services you might be consuming as well. And that's a huge area we think we'll see growth.
Okay. Okay, next question. How do you stop runaway costs? So I think that talks back to the cloud health discussion. Yeah. And I personally, what I think people should be doing is having, you've got two options. Either you have a very, very smart financial person managing your cloud, and there's almost a new job role called a cloud financial manager. But there's a much easier way of doing that, and that's to have a cloud provider that manages your cost for you. And that could be in the form of the software, Cloud Health, that package, or it could be a full cloud managed service where we actually guarantee, in Vox's case, where we guarantee you won't exceed your budget, which I think is quite a powerful.
I think that's very powerful. I mean, a lot of organizations, they just have this thing, someone comes to them saying cost of ownership will be cheaper in the cloud. They buy into that, but don't understand all the costs involved. So I think those assessment services and the tools you're delivering bring an awful lot of benefit. I have a term, I don't know if this is going to be, politically correct or sound business, but I call it the hippo in an organization, which is the highest paid person of opinion. And that hippo often isn't very technical, thinks cloud is a magic bullet. They often think their own IT department is useless. So think, I'm going to give all this away to the cloud, service will be better, costs will reduce. So I think, it's far more nuanced than that as we're talking about. I think understanding what you want to achieve for this application workload by moving it to the cloud, that allows you to understand what is the right platform for it. Should it go to a private cloud? Are you going to redevelop it as cloud native or scrap it and go to SaaS or whatever? The 6 R's or the 5 R's, whichever you subscribe to. You have to understand where you're going with that application. That then predicates where the application goes. Then you can look at, right, what is the cost structure going to be there? If you don't have a thought through strategy to do that, you are going to end up with runaway costs. And sure, you can claw them back with the likes of Cloud Health, but you don't want to make the mistake first.
Yeah, and just to quickly touch on what one of the benefits of Cloud Health is that it tells you at that point if you're going to exceed your budget, rather than when you get the bill from a hyperscaler or from another provider. Knowing it the day that it happens is much more valuable than knowing it a month later, once you've actually had that bill. So I think that's a key benefit.
It's real time.
Yeah, 100%. So the next question is, does Vox conduct free assessments for those wanting to move away from I'm going to say hyperscalers, it says Azure there, to VMware Cloud Services? And the answer is yes. We have a variety of assessment tools that we can use to actually measure what the customer has. And like I said earlier, to right size it to the correct size. Just moving it like for like into the cloud is a disaster waiting to happen. You will spend more money than you think. But using an assessment to right size it to the correct size is incredibly valuable.
Yeah, and I think this is an interesting point we're in at the moment, right? We were hit by COVID-19. It impacted the global markets dramatically. And if you have moved workloads into one of the hyperscalers, while you might be paying in Rand locally, it's a dollar-based price. So if we get hit by negative exchange rate fluctuation, that impact is literally that month to a client, right? You know, what does that do to your budgets? Yeah, private cloud delivered out of your your hosting facility on Vox. Yes, it's got dollar elements to it, but you're principally RAM based. So I think it allows you to deliver that private cloud, as I say, with much more structure to the end user customers, so they won't get those cost overruns. And that's music to my ears. Unfortunately, not for your customer that's thinking about moving the stuff back, because that's a bit of work for them. But we are seeing this. People are realizing that it isn't a silver bullet in the public cloud necessarily for those existing applications. Move them back to a private cloud. It can be significantly cheaper. You didn't mention the figure earlier, so I'm going to say, I believe you said the example you gave me, you were 40% cheaper than the hyperscale offering, which is dramatic.
And in March, when the first lockdown happened, because of the exchange rates, the cost of Azure actually went up by 30%. We had customers on Azure that had a 30% increase in their bill just because of nothing in their control. I suppose that's the right way of putting it. So how does Vox control costs in their VDC? So, well, probably one of the key ones is...
I was going to say, maybe you should say what a VDC is first.
Yeah, so VDC stands for Virtual Data Center, and to position it, it's exactly like having a data center on site, except that it's in a cloud provider. So you have networking, firewall, security, your virtual machines, and it's all, the construct is exactly the same as if you had it on site, but you have all those benefits of elasticity, not having to worry about power, cooling, electricity, security, all of those things. That's all taken care of. So that's what VDC is. And
sorry, and I mean, it's full self-service for the client. They can spin up, shut down, load apps, that sort of stuff.
100%, fully self-service. You can spin up an app with any size that you want. So you're not restricted to t-shirt sizes like you are on the hyperscalers. So you can have any size VM you want with any sort of configuration and any operating system.
And
Linux, Windows.
And the networking, self-service as well.
So yes, 100%. It's a private network range inside your VDC with an edge to the internet, and that edge can connect to a variety of different things: MPLS, VPNs, any of those sort of offerings. But the network inside, it's the exact same construct that you'd have on an on-site data center.
So it really is all those benefits of a public cloud, but delivered with that security and structure of a private cloud.
Yeah, 100%. Another question that's come through: is the Vox VDC dollar or RAND based? So it's RAND based, and that is obviously quite a benefit. We don't have the exchange rate fluctuations that some of the hyperscalers do, or all of the hyperscalers do, because they're all based in dollars. Then the next question: you spoke of cost optimization. Is this something Vox offers, and what is the success you've had with this example? So yes, 100%. We call it cloud cost management, and we have a variety of different solutions that we offer. Like I said, from the software all the way through to a fully managed cloud system. And when we say fully managed and we guarantee it, what we do is we take away the I'm going to say the headache of who provisions your cloud. In the past, IT, and I was an IT guy, so I can talk from experience. We're like kids in a candy store when we get some sort of platform like that. We just spin up VMs as we like, and nobody then looks whether they still needed running, costing, and they all costing money as they run. So with our cost management service, we provide that service. So if you need a server provisioned, you log a call, it gets approved by your manager, and then we provision it for you. So in that way, we can guarantee that you won't exceed your budget. But even if that does happen, we have the tools in Cloud Health that allow us to alert you if there's let's say somebody spins up a server that's going to cost an extra, add 10% to your bill. The same day that happens, we'll alert you. So you'll pay for one day extra rather than an entire month's worth when you get the bill at the end. Next question. We want to evaluate a cloud migration, but don't have the skills to manage it going forward. So if you don't have cloud skills, and to be fair, the cloud management skill set is something fairly new for a lot of IT people, that a lot of people will, like I was, brought up on tin, spinning screwdrivers and loading everything. Vox has a fully managed cloud service where they'll manage the entire cloud platform for a customer. So they have all the benefits of being in the cloud, but don't necessarily need that entire skill set. And we often, one of the big benefits of using a managed partner for that is that you may have one or two guys in your IT department. We have way more than you have, and we have a skill level ranging from entry level all the way up to experts, and you get access to all those skills. And it's almost impossible for most businesses, especially SMEs and mid businesses, to have that full skill set on staff without costing an absolute fortune. Okay, next question: how secure is my data? So I know you.
I think you were answering part of that just now when you said you had the skills that most organizations could not have, and you obviously have the relationships directly with the vendors as well for leverage their skills also. Data is data. We know the majority of breaches anyway are normally via some form of social engineering. That's something that an organization needs to be educating their users about. But if we go from sort of physical through to IT, we know your data centers are in very secure facilities with a lot of uptime, but a lot of the right sort of access controls, in cages and such like. So physically, you're in a great environment. And then you do have the skills as Vox, right? You're securing the data for, I don't even know how many clients you have within your platform, but it's numbers, it's not just one.
Yes.
Yeah,
So. And I think that's a key point. From a security point of view, it comes back to the skills discussion. Between people like VMware, Microsoft, AWS, they are probably hundreds of thousands of people worldwide that look after the security in these platforms, that test them, that write the software. So that's almost impossible for a single company to compete with. Okay, can VMware explain their strategy, the mega cloud? I'm assuming they're looking at the banner behind you. It's quite an interesting construct. So.
It is. So why do we say that? I suppose it's because if I was to go to the average CFO, COO, COO, CEO, and say, name me 3 cloud providers. People are going to talk about AWS, they're going to talk about Azure, Google, sometimes people say Apple or whatever else, right? They don't think of VMware as being a cloud destination, one of the cloud platforms that would form their strategy. Our hugest success was transforming the on-prem data center, with virtualization. I think we save our customers over $10 billion a year in things like power, cooling, such like infrastructure. But that private cloud concept, I think, is only gaining real traction today. A few years ago, and a lot of organizations think it's a binary decision. It's on-prem, and then I have to move everything to the cloud. Well, as we've been discussing through this, that's just more nuanced. So why we call it the mega cloud is because we have partnerships, as I mentioned, with the all 6 of the major hyperscalers globally. Who'd have thought you get VMware Cloud on AWS, you get a Azure VMware solution and such like. Why do they do that? Because they all know we're the fastest road to the cloud. But we also have our cloud provider partners such as Vox, and that's a network of 4,000 partners from very, very large international brand organizations that you might be quite surprised, such as Rackspace. But the key to that is these localized providers, because you as Vox are delivering solutions to your clients tailored to our market with a cost structure. We spoke about cost, with adherence to local security and governance regulations. It's not a one size fits all. And actually, our partners are running, well, this figure's over a year ago, it'll be a lot more now, but 10 million workloads in the cloud. That would actually make them cumulatively the 2nd largest hyperscaler. And so, people need to consider that VMware-based private cloud as a key component of their cloud strategy, because A, they get to the cloud faster, B, it might be actually a lot more cost effective, and it is an optimal platform for traditional applications. And I've said that a lot, but actually you want to run cloud native apps in a secure environment in a private cloud, they can be run on Vox as well. And maybe you want to tell us a little bit about what you're doing with containerization and Kubernetes there.
So we obviously, being a VMware house, we're looking at the Tanzu solution. Right now, we're still in the sort of R&D phase of it, but it is something that's definitely on our roadmap to provide to our customers probably in the next six to 8 months, because we do understand that it's a key sort of cloud driver. That hybrid model, your old traditional apps on VMs, and then your new apps in the container type world. There's a question there, what's on the roadmap for Vox Cloud? And that's actually what we just touched on. Containers would be the next key option. Very, very interesting. For those of you in the audience, Kubernetes is one that a lot of people know of. Docker is the other one, the relatively well-known one. But yeah, that's probably the next key option. Okay, let's see what else we have here. Any legislative security considerations for government companies with regard to data in the cloud and possibly be hosted in a different country? So from a government perspective, the data sovereignty rules around governments mean that it has to be in South Africa. And obviously we're a cloud provider in South Africa, so that does cover it. And we can also guarantee that it'll stay in South Africa, because there are a couple of cloud providers who say that it's in South Africa, but their DR is actually into another country. And that's something you need to be very cognizant of. And it's not just government, it's also financial services companies that need to also conform to those sort of regulations.
Yeah, I'm not I mean, organizations have got to have their own policies around where their data can be. But I just think knowing your data is close. And I think this is it. You as Vox can have a more personal relationship with your clients. You can understand what are their specific requirements and tailor the solution to meet those requirements for them.
Yeah, and we can be quite, next question, will Vox be getting POPI 27001 compliance and 27001 and POPI compliance in their environments? So yes, we're in the process of going through our ISO 27001 certification. For those of you that aren't aware, that's the IT security certification, the ISO certification on that. And we're also looking at getting our POPI compliance. Obviously, POPI is now in effect, so pretty much everyone has to, and I think we're another 8 months away from when you actually have to be compliant. So that's very important to us. So yeah, we're well on the road to doing that. Our ISO compliance should be done by early next year. So we'll be ISO 27001. We are actually hosted in an ISO 27001 data center already, but just from our own internal processes, we want to be compliant. Okay, is there an easier and cost-effective way for small businesses to leverage the Vox cloud opportunities to unlock associated costs? So Vox offers a POP in the VDC, which is virtual data center we discussed earlier. We also offer what we call small business VM, also running on VMware, so you get all the benefits of having not say verified, the certified stack that we use, but at a much lower price point. There we do have t-shirt sizes because we do understand that a customer would have specific requirements, but it goes all the way from very small VMs up to larger VMs. For the use case is single VMs. Once you get past the single VM sort of stage, then you start needing to look at the virtual data center where you have your network in and your firewalls. And
I think that's great, isn't it? Because it means that smaller organizations that maybe don't want all the flexibility that you can provide in a VDC can access the cloud very, very easily. And I think another nice aspect is, VMware is the gold standard for virtualization and running traditional applications.
Well, they invented it, didn't they?
We did. I mean, there'll always be someone that says, well, it was on the mainframe first. But yeah, very much they did. But organizations sometimes haven't been able to finance having VMware in their own data center. It was easier to take a free solution. And much like a puppy at Christmas, we all know that free is only temporary. You still have to feed and water and take to the vets. And you choose VMware because we have that low cost of ownership, even though there's a cost to the licensing. But it means that organizations that couldn't access a VMware-based platform now can with yourselves. But they also have that strategy for growth as they grow. They got more skills. They want to consume their own networking. They can do all that in your virtual data center. And I think that's very powerful for them.
Okay, what's the process to start a cloud engagement with Vox? So we have sales specialists you can engage with. You can book an assessment. That's probably the key first step, to book the assessment so that you can at least get an insight into what your environment's comprised of. We offer a free assessment to start with that we can do. And we also offer paid for assessments that provide more value and more, not more value, more data for those companies that have maybe a bigger environment that they want to understand exactly how everything fits together, what the dependencies are. You touched on that earlier. We have that full cloud assessment, but it is as a first step. The free assessment's a very nice way to get your foot in the door, just to understand what you have and what your options are moving to the cloud. Okay, so any other thoughts, comments?
Yeah, I suppose I'd say, yeah, organizations, and a lot said they weren't moving to the cloud earlier. They have to be thinking about how they're going to get there. I come back to that Gartner stat, 80% of data centers are going to be closed. It's not core to a business to run their own data center. At the same time, 90% of those traditional applications are going to remain unchanged. So yeah, organizations need to be quite open-minded about how they're going to the cloud. I do think an assessment is the obvious place to start. If you don't know where you are, how do you know where you're going to be going? And how do you get there? It's a bit like if I have been coming to Vox today and I just said it's a left turn, 2 right turns and a left turn. Well, that's different if I'm at Melrose Arch or whether I'm in Four Ways. I end up somewhere different. So do that assessment, work with an organization that can bring those skills. And the nice thing with Vox is, if it means going to Azure or somewhere, that's the right answer. You guys can provide that, at AWS. So, you've got that breadth. You can become, I believe, that trusted advisor to your clients. And organizations need to move, I think, at their own speed, but there are so many benefits to being in a cloud operating model. We spoke about it earlier, that virtual data center, you can scale on demand, but they get the predictable costs. They've got the full self-service. They're no longer responsible for buying servers. People spend months deciding, are they going to buy brand A or B? Oh no, and then they've got to buy storage. Is it brand A or is it B? People are fighting over which is the best hyper-converged infrastructure solution. That's yesterday's discussion. Let someone else run the infrastructure. All you want is a platform for your applications. If you get that, you can migrate to the cloud exceptionally quickly. I actually had a customer in Kenya, of all places, a bank. We moved them to the cloud in one day. They wrapped up business on a Friday, did the migrations. The Nairobi Stock Exchange went in, verified the cloud services worked, and their users came online on the Monday. And the only difference they knew was when the applications didn't fall over later in the week because it worked better in the cloud. What's most impressive about this organization was it was then able to focus on that new app development. So they built a containerized stack on the VMware and their private cloud, and they built mobile apps. So they enhanced the business as well as improving the infrastructure operations.
Excellent. Thank you guys for all attending today. Hopefully this has been valuable to you. Thank you to Dave for joining me. I think his insights have been particularly valuable. The webinar is recorded and will be sent to you after the webinar, and feel free to share it to people you might find useful. Thanks a lot, guys.